Hey guys, it's Capper with Lantern Light Capital. Let's see, can we get the shirt in the pic? Good to see you. Listen, this is a absolute must watch. So there's a book out there called Structuring and Raising Debt and Equity for Real Estate. Now, this is by a guy named Rob Beardsley. He owns this company, Lantern Light Capital. He owns Lone Star Capital. This is one of the best books I've ever read as far as structuring real estate, debt, and equity. However, it is insanely dense. Not to brag, I know it's a trope, but I'm a ER doctor. I'm a doctor, and the density of this material far surpassed any amount of medical school studying. Actually, I remember the first time I had to memorize the 3D structure of the heart. And it's kind of unique because I remember thinking like, wow, I'm not just memorizing numbers or letters. Like, I'm memorizing 3D objects and flow of material and, flow of blood, basically. And so it kind of reminds me of that very first time. After a while, it becomes second nature. But what I want to do is I want to break down this book, and I'm dividing this up into the chapters. This is my kind of review of the book, if you will. And again, this will change your life knowing this. And if you are a passive real estate investor, I highly, highly encourage you to watch this entire series. 100% go buy the book. Just do it right now. I just love Rob's take on it. I see so much myself in the way he talks about negotiations, and you'll kind of see, I'll make commentary here as we go through, but there's so many ways to structure these deals. These syndication deals is kind of mostly what he's talking about here. And that's the target audience. You're a passive investor or you're a real estate investor looking to do a syndication or put together an equity type raise for a self-storage syndication or real estate syndication. These deals can be put together so many different ways. And that's really what he goes through here. And I just love how he makes comments on what they do with his company at Lone Star, very similar to what we do at Lantern Light here. It's like, we'll look at a deal structure, and oftentimes the investors don't know what you're doing on the back end. They just got to look at it, but there's a lot of subtlety here. And in the end, the investor relation is based on trust. Now, I don't want you guys to just trust me. I want you to watch this insanely dense video. I'm going to try to keep this exciting. So let's start from the very beginning. Introduction. What are the three things that matter in real estate? One, the cost of the property. Of course, they say this is like a meme within real estate. The money in real estate is made on the purchase of the property. And don't you dare say anything bad about my handwriting here. You better watch it. All right. So the cost of the property, that makes or breaks a deal. If the property's worth $1.5 million, you get it for $1 million, you just made $500,000 in equity built in. Two, the deal structure. That's what this entire video series is about. And then finally, the management, something we're absolutely, absolutely passionate about here. And this is what creates success in a real estate deal. Each one of these things can be broken down almost ad infinitum, but let's talk about the deal structure today, because cost is a whole interesting aspect to negotiations. My partner, Ben Mason, literally one of the best negotiators I've ever met in my entire life. The man spent the past 6 years negotiating at an extreme higher level, dozens of times per day. The guy is a seasoned negotiator. I basically just offload my entire negotiations to him, or I feel like I've also gotten better just by practice, right? That's the cost of the property. The management, of course, we love that whole thing. Very passionate about that here. But let's get into the deal structure. That's how you succeed. What are the aspects that go into this? Well, different partners. I remember I was chatting with one of our kind of equity partners, a guy that has a pretty large network, and one of our initial conversations, he said, "Well, hey, this deal doesn't cash flow that well in the beginning," and my response was like, that's true, but not every investor is interested in cash flow, right? There's a lot of different types of investors out there, from just your retail, which, higher end retail, if you will, the higher end retail, the Lululemon, or I don't know any other higher end brands, and that's not even that high end. Shame on me. The Louis Vuitton, there you go, of retail investors, the accredited retail investors. There's all the way up to family offices, and then big institutional money. So everybody has kind of a different deal criteria and different things that they really care about. Raising debt, which is kind of negotiating with banks. We'll go over that in the beginning. And then finally, the equity and syndication side of this. So hopefully you are jacked up on caffeine and you're ready for this. Pay attention. After you watch my video series, you go through that book. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes. I got the book over here. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes, Structuring and Raising Debt and Equity for Real Estate. Unbelievable book. Amazing. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so let's get into chapter 1. We're going to talk about debt, basically. How are we going to raise debt? And that's I got it playing in the background here. How are we going to raise debt? Basically a loan, right? What types of loans are there? How are you going to get loans? So we're going to look at permanent, and we're going to look at short-term loans. So let's take a look. We're going to start at the very beginning here with agency loans, aka permanent loans. These are going to be for a little bit of a longer term. These are the Fannie and Freddie backed loans. You've heard of these kind of federal type institutions that back these loans up, and these banks or these lenders that are lending under these federally backed institutions, Fannie and Freddie. Let's do a little bit of screen. I got the screen here. I got to write on it a little bit. They just go by different terms, right? One's for Fannie, one's for Freddie. Delegated Underwriting Service Lenders, or DUS lenders, aka lenders that are approved to underwrite these loans and grant these loans under these two federal institutions. So what is the key with kind of understanding this relationship, though? So look here. Different lenders underwrite differently. All right, so they're lending with the same loan product, if you will, or the same, that's not the perfect way to put it, but they're lending with the same federally backed program. So they're doing the quote unquote same loan, but they're still different lenders, and they're going to charge an amount, an interest rate amount on top of what the kind of the standard rate would be, right? The bank has to make a little bit of their money. So they are going to vary this, and that's where the negotiation comes into play. And this is all about, one, understanding the different aspects of the loan, and two, being able to negotiate. So these DUS lenders are going to look at different projects differently. So let's say we're building a nice little storage facility, right? Little simple boxes. I love these simple boxes. I know how I underwrite my boxes, and I have my models that are that I think are awesome. But the bank might look at something different, right? They might use different metrics, and they might say, "Hey, this deal is not our type of deal. I don't like to do this kind for whatever reason." They're using the same DSCR and loan to value, which there's a little interesting conversation there. The debt service coverage ratio. Right? How much is your net income versus how much is your mortgage payment is the quick way to think of that. AKA, how much are you cash flowing, right? Because your net income is your gross minus your expenses. So that's just your net. And then you say, okay, well, how expensive is my loan? And that's where the DSCR comes in. So how much, it's basically the bank, DSCR is basically the bank asking, can you, and how much can you cover the loan, right? Can you pay your mortgage payment? And then loan to value, always very important, right? This is something I care about a lot. With a loan, if it's a 35%, I got to pay a 35% down payment. That's a big deal for me. But they're going to have a very similar DSCR and loan to value ratio, but they're going to, again, underwrite differently. So there's all these other little aspects of the loan that are not necessarily part of the federally backed kind of program, if you will. That's what we're going to talk about. So talk to these DUS lenders and talk to lots of them. Talk to lots of different lenders and get a feel for what they want, what they don't want, what makes them happy, what makes them sad, and what you can negotiate on, right? How many times is this negotiate written in this presentation? It's written, we'll do a little divider there for good measure. It's written a lot, okay? So that's your kind of your fixed loans. Over 5 years, these are more permanent loans. There's not going to be a big improvement necessarily needed for these types of loans. Now, bridge loans. This term is a rough term, and it encompasses a lot of different types of loans. There's a couple good videos out there. I forget the one. There's one on YouTube by a lender, and he says, just search like bridge loan nomenclature, bridge loan explained, or something like that. And he's basically a residential guy, a lender, and he talks about this term of bridge loan, and it can mean like 10 different products. And it's better to just kind of talk about the specifics of your products, because in the commercial space versus the residential space, bridge loan is completely different. Like one of the products for a bridge loan, not terribly relevant here, but one of the products for a bridge loan in the residential space is if you're moving homes. Okay, so you live in your primary, then you're going to move to a second one, but you don't want to sell your current home exactly right now. So you're going to own, for a brief period of time, you're going to own 2 homes, your old home and your new one. And then you take out a loan with kind of both homes at the same time. It's a bridge loan. And then maybe it's taking a little bit longer to sell your primary home or whatever, your first home. They're both your primary home, your first home, and then eventually you sell it and then you go to a standard mortgage. That's called a bridge loan. That's not at all what we're talking about here. We're talking about often floating rate, right? Variable rate loans for projects that require some degree of rehab or value add or construction. And these are a little more complex than your standard agency, aka permanent loans, right? And those are those Fannie and Freddie back loans. This is where it gets a little more interesting, right? Because the bridge loans are a little more custom, oftentimes floating rate, short term. What do we look at to go back to the permanent loans? When I'm looking at a long-term financing, I look at leverage, aka what's the loan to value, or how much do I have to put down for the loan? And then do I have to collateralize the loan with something else? Sometimes, I think these SBA loans are classic for it. You have to be 100% collateralized. Don't quote me on that. You always get into the details when you're doing the deal, but you have to be 100% collateralized. So sometimes you'll not have to put the cash down, but you'll have to put something up else as collateral. I remember a deal we had where it was actually my first SBA loan, and we were like, okay, this is, I forget if we did a 7A or whatever. I forget which one we did, but it was 10%. It's either 10 or 15% down. Let's say 15%. Like, okay, we can do that. And then we got the appraisal. Okay, fine. Oh, well, actually you can do 15% down, but you have to fully collateralize the entire thing. And the appraisal didn't come in perfectly. So we either had to put more cash down or something else up as collateral, which I had a rental property that, or was it my primary? Anyways, I had a property that had a bunch of equity that I wasn't going to refinance in the near future, and that equity was just sitting there. And so basically I said, this was kind of last minute. I'm like, well, I'll throw that equity in that property up as collateral. Let's just get this deal done. I should ask for some extra equity in the deal for doing that, but I didn't. Alas, we got the deal done. I was happy to do it. Now, we talked about leverage. The percentage. This is, again, more for the long-term stuff. What do we care about for long-term stuff? We care about what the percentage interest rate is. Sure, with the bridge loans, they're floating. And then years of interest only are important. With bridge loans, it's a lot more than just this basic stuff. Shout out to Gabe, who has probably asked these questions to 20 different lenders when we were looking for long-term financing to our one deal. How much down? What's the percentage? And how many years interest only? All right, they might ask for personal guarantees. They might ask for different types of guarantees, like a construction completion guarantee. So dig into the details of the, is it nice to draw stuff? Let me draw a little house, right? We got to keep you guys engaged. This is dense stuff. Hopefully my commentary is helping. In these bridge loans, they might, and again, bridge, think short-term loan with likely some degree of construction or value add or rehab that's required. In these bridge loans, they might ask for a construction completion guarantee or some other type of guarantee that is going to affect how the loan is paid out or how much you have to collateralize this thing. Basically, dig. If you're going to, you should read all of your loan documents, of course, but more so with the bridge loan. Sit down, drink your coffee or your Bang or whatever you drink and dig into these details. They might ask for what's called a DACA or a lockbox. So this is an interesting little concept. There's 3 types of lockboxes: soft, hard, and springing. So what is a lockbox? Well, remember this concept of DSCR, SCR, which is like, you got your income, your expenses, and you write this expenses. This is how you do this in Excel, right? It's like, this is your money in, your income is how much you spend. Then you subtract the 2. That's your net income. Okay, that's easy, right? And now this is how much you're making, but that's not your cash, right? Because you still got to pay your debt, aka your mortgage, if you will. So your net income minus your debt equals your, push this over here, your cash flow, right? There's other stuff that goes into that, interest and all this stuff, but let's just make it super simple. You have your income, you subtract your expenses, that gets your net income, you pay your debt, and you get your cash flow. So what the DSCR is asking, and there's a reason I'm prepping this all to talk about lockboxes, your DSCR is saying, well, how much is your net income? If your net income is $1,000 and your debt is $999, that's not a very good DSCR, because if you get a $1 expense, that's going to drop your net income to $999. Then you're just breaking even. The bank doesn't want that. They want to see this number, the net income, over your debt. That's your debt service coverage, to like 1.2 or 1.25. So that in this case, let's say your debt's $999. That would mean you're $1,200. 1,200 is your net income over 999 is almost exactly a debt service coverage ratio of 1.2. So what is a way that the bank can say, hey, I want to make sure I get paid? Well, they can create a lockbox. So a soft lockbox is where you have a bank-controlled account, okay, or lender-controlled account. And so the lender, you're getting your income. All your income goes into this lender-controlled account, and then from there, you pay first. It's like income into the lender-controlled account, and then debt. Because the lender account comes first, so you got to pay your debt first. Then, in a soft lockbox, the rents go to your account after that. So first, your income goes to the lender account, then the bank sucks their mortgage payment out of it, and then, okay, here's the rest of your money, and you can pay your expenses from there. In a hard account, it's literally just a bank-controlled account. You have a bank-controlled account, the bank can access the money there, they take the money out, and they can just, that's what they do every month. They pull out their, erasing here, they pull out their mortgage payment, basically, your debt service payment. And then a springing is only if like there's a trigger, say something bad happens or you're having trouble. I'm sure there's a ton of different, I haven't really dug into all the different types of triggers, but a springing lockbox sure sounds a lot better to me. And you could negotiate all the specifics of that springing lockbox, right? And that's what I would, if the bank insisted on the lockbox, that's what you would want. All right, so again, what are we talking about here? We're talking about all the different things to negotiate on within a bridge loan. We talked about what a bridge loan is. We talked about how it's much more complex than just your standard long-term loan, where you really care most about what your down payment percentage is, what your interest percentage is, and what your years of interest only are. We talked about how with bridge loans, they'll ask for sometimes different guarantees, personal guarantees, how they might ask for, I know this is this not the best blackboard drawing you've ever seen? How they might ask for a DACA, aka a lockbox. I think DACA stands for like distributor something controlled account or lender controlled account, right? I like to call it a LCA. I'm changing the terms here. God help me. Now, they might ask for the loan to be a recourse loan. Interesting. Well, this is tough. So let's say you're doing a $100 million apartment deal or a very large self-storage deal, right? And you're a mid-sized operator. They're asking for 30% down. You got to come up with 30 million. Not a crazy number, but it's something. But then they say, okay, well, you collateralize this with 30 million of your down payment, of your equity. And then they're like, well, on top of that, I also need you to be liable. If this thing goes way under, there needs to be some recourse. I need you to be personally guaranteed that if this $100 million deal goes down really bad, you're liable for up to 20% of it, aka 20 million. Now, a self-storage deal, and honestly, any property deal, they're not going to zero, right? You're not, this gets into the whole conversation of how you advertise your company, and, we do syndications, and you'll hear these guys, this isn't financial advice, blah, blah, blah. So I like to, this little speech I'm about to give, just pay attention to me here. I know it's a little off topic. I want to give this speech. So when I present these things, this is educational, and we also do syndications. So I will make this following statement. It is almost impossible for a self-storage investment, for a apartment investment to go to $0. Now, there's so much complexity behind that, right? Because if you buy $100 million or you spend $100 million on a storage facility, and you have your 30% down that you paid your 30 million, it is basically impossible for it to go to $0. Okay, 0 million. Now, could you get a nuclear? Could there be some nuclear pollution on site that's found because some random guy, dumped some hospital grade nuclear waste? Yes, it is possible. Anything's technically possible, but it's very, very rare, to the point where it's, kind of like an act of God kind of thing. Now, what am I getting at here? You're not ever really going to lose 100 million, but you might lose 20. And in this guy, when he has his recourse loan, you might lose 20. These guys that did the down payment, well, these poor clowns probably aren't going to get their money back, and this guy is going to have to be, paying 20 million. My whole thing about raising around and how I talk about these things is like, I think you can, and this is like, I would play this video anytime, and I would say, if anybody said, hey, is this guy shilling products? No, I think it's very clear what I talk about and what I do. And what is the point of this video? And this gets into marketing and trust and who we are at Lantern Light Capital. Obviously, I love this stuff. I'm very passionate about it. And our goal at Lantern Light Capital, and why I put out this content, is to educate you in a exciting and in a good way, so that you can be a savvy investor. And when you look at these guys that, they don't want to talk about this stuff. Well, guess what? I'll talk about every single aspect of it because this is fun to me. Just pay attention. I hope you're learning. Rant over. I'll keep moving forward. Okay. Interest on unfunded capital. Again, back to the whole thing. What are we talking about? We're talking about these bridge loans. We talked about how they might ask you to have a lockbox, a DACA. They might also ask you to have interest on an unfunded capital account. Well, what if they do so you're building a expansion to a storage facility, right? And that expansion, so you're buying a storage facility, let's say it's 50,000, my pen here, 50,000 square foot, and you're going to expand it to 100,000. Okay. Well, you might need $2 million to do that. Don't quote me on those numbers. They might be off, but you might need a $2 million holdback. So you're going to purchase this facility. You got to pay the down payment, or you got to pay the purchase price of $2 million. Okay. Then you're going to expand it to 100,000 square foot. That's another $2 million. So total all in price is $4 million. Okay. Well, that $2 million is not going to be just given to you lump sum cash. That's not how the bank does it. They will distribute those funds as you need them, which is very reasonable. Like, why just I don't need the $2 million as I'm building the facility, just boom. So they distribute it, as it comes. Now, you got to double check and make sure they're not asking you to pay the interest on the $2 million up front. So the construction is going to take 2 years, and it's a $2 million construction loan. Well, or $2 million holdback for the construction aspect, or the CapEx, the improvement of the project. That $2 million, are they going to ask for 6% of that $2 million for both of those years? Or are they going to say, okay, well, at first we spent $100,000 on all of the engineering and all that, and that was the first 3 months. Okay, now you're paying 6% on the $100,000, and then at month 6, okay, now we're doing the site work, and that was $500,000, and that now we're paying the money on that. That's how it should be. This is like, I remember one of our first deals. I keep going back to our first deals. I didn't know, I guess I work with good banks. I didn't know this was a thing because I've never had a bank try to slip this in on me. But when I was doing the underwriting, I actually put this into my numbers, and it made the deal look way better once I realized, we're not going to be paying, the 6% on the $2 million for the entire construction time. We're going to slowly be paying little bits of interest as the money gets distributed. So next is the index floor. They might try to add an index floor to you. So the index, something like SOFR or the secured overnight financing rate. These are these kind of index rates that banks use to set their interest percentage. Well, what if the SOFR, this rate that banks are using to determine your floating interest rate? Remember, these are oftentimes adjustable rates. These short-term bridge loans are adjustable rate. Well, what if, thank God, something good happens for once? This is 2023, by the way. Interest rates are, killing me. What if something good happens and the SOFR drops really low? So you got your loan initially when the SOFR was 2.5. It drops to 2.0. And they say, well, we put in a floor of 2.3. Well, interest rates are super low now. They dropped to 2.0. Sorry, bud. You have a floor, so you still got to pay this higher rate. Oh, that's my baby in the background there. This is nice to have. It's nice to have a floor. That being said, they might not be willing to completely negotiate on that floor. So you can negotiate on other things, right? Maybe their rate. You can try to get their rate down a little bit. This all goes into the equation. It all helps you understand the loan. And then finally, your term on a bridge loan. You really think you're getting your project done in 18 months? There's my little dog. Baby, what do you think? What are we learning right now? We're learning about bridge loans. What are bridge loans? Tell the people.
1 + 1 is 2.
1 + 1 is 2. And let me ask you this. For your bridge loan, would you want to have let me see. Do you want a hard lockbox, a springing lockbox, or a soft lockbox? Say springing. Springing lockbox.
Springing.
Springing lockbox. High five. Solid work. All right, chapter 1, boys. chapter 1. God bless, solid work.